Hey folks, I realized that I had only one Redux example in the Cypress component test repository. So I decided I'll add more Redux examples because we have a lot of that in our source code. I want to make sure Cypress component testing works really well with Redux. And I went through a book series. This is the second one in the book series by Christian Salcescu. So it talks about lots of React and function programming. It's a bit dated, but I was able to benefit from that. So I thought adding those examples would be cool. And I went ahead and basically made Redux work in every way that the book was talking about it, right? So if you're familiar with Redux, you're familiar with creating your actions, your store, and creating your reducer. So when it comes to Cypress component testing, you have two options. Either you can import the store that you have created somewhere else and then just use it in the test. You just wrap it with provided from React Redux and have your store and use the imported one. Or you can go ahead and configure the store within the test. So this is very similar to how you would do it in your root component, right? You just instead creating in the test, you can even set the initial state if you want, and then just go to town with it. Like you can use dispatch to change the store state and then test it however you want. Right? So that's the gist of it. The book also had plenty of functional programming examples, which is why I was very interested in it because I thought, okay, that's interesting, right? So how would it apply to the real world? And each chapter has some reference to, okay, maybe using pipe here or using partial or lambda or O-FP. And you have all those examples there. This morning, I saw a video by Kyle from Web Dev Simplified. Goes through the 6 mistakes that anyone might make with React. So I thought, okay, those are quite interesting because seeing what not to do is a good way to learn. So I added those examples. And the way I think it's really cool is, so I have lots of toggles here to first have a failing test. Uh, let's say in this first example, there's an email and password field. And he's basically saying you might be using set state in a bad way, and it may be causing so many renders, right? So in this example, I have just a console log for render, and because of the number of characters and then the submit action and then the initial render, that's like 20 something renders. Or is it 18? 18, right? So 18 renders. Um, so it shows you the anti-pattern, and I mark the spots where the toggle goes through. So instead of using set state when using a form, it says basically that just use ref, and here is how we use ref, and then the toggle spots are right here. So toggle the right parts like that, and then like that. Okay, and save it, then wait for it to run, and then eventually. Now I do have some performance issues in this repository because there's so many component tests, and Cypress is working towards making that faster. But for now, we just have to live with it a little bit. And as soon as we apply the good pattern, we have the failing test because it's the render is called only once, right, instead of 20 times. Um, what's really interesting is, okay, you see the bad thing, you see the good thing, you have a pretty well working component test, which you were able to fail first because so that means it's a fault finding test, right? You already have it there. You're very confident it's concise, all good, right? So why not go and try crazy functional refactors just because you're interested in functional programming, right? So here is the same thing, and they'll submit, but in 3 piecemeal functions that compose into each other. So we have console, destruct event, and prevent default being piped. I'm using Lambda. You can use load-fp if you want. By the way, this is TypeScript, so TypeScript I think works well with functional programming, especially if you might not know what you're doing. So it's just going to make sure the types are matching as the data pipes through. And then that's the only toggle that we have to make. And then we save. And then right after the functional refactor, right, we run it and it's fine. So it's fascinating that you can try these crazy things with your components while you're working on them in isolation. Have these crazy refactors, apply functional programming even, and it still works. So I thought that's pretty cool. And he goes through 6 more examples. So here I have like an example of partial. So instead of an anonymous function returning something, I'm using partial load-sp here. And then there is a similar version with Lambda, I think. So the Lambda, the second argument has to be a array, right? So that's the only difference. But check these out. I learned a lot from the anti-patterns, right? And in each example, you'll be able to uncomment or toggle the anti-pattern, get a failing test, and then after that, you'll be able to do the right thing and then get a passing test. The repo, the PR should be up soon. It's at the Cypress component test repository. So if you go here, I'm gonna just push a few more tidbits. Just mind that I had to disable Cypress dashboard here because every single run was 300 something. I think 390, close to 390 now. And Renovate bot is just killing it. So I want to have Renovate bot, but with Cypress dashboard, it doesn't play that well. So you have to make concessions. Anyway, check it out for Redux examples with Cypress component testing, functional programming refactoring examples with Cypress component testing, and finally the 6 hook mistakes, anti-patterns, and good patterns in React.